how do you know when you come across an evil spirit that it's not necessarily a demon, but it's just an asshole? Welcome to Splintered Spirits. I'm your host, Gary, and I'm trying to find the answer to one question. What are spirits? And let's face it, I'll probably never find it, but we may get close. That question started when I began following my nephew, John Santa, better known on TikTok as Santa Paranormal, as he communicates with what appear to be spirits on the daily. Together we explore the strange, the haunted, and the theories that might explain it all. My guest today is demonologist James Annitto. He has spent over 2 decades investigating the dark edges of the paranormal. He's an ordained Old Catholic deacon, a lecturer, and the founder of the Dominion Ministry, an outreach dedicated to helping people who believe they're facing something inhuman. James has worked alongside clergy, investigators, and researchers across the country, and he brings both pastoral care and a trained psychological lens to every case he encounters. He's the author of a new book, The Psychological Dimensions of the Paranormal, a link could be found in the description here and in our bio, which examines how the mind, emotion, and environment all shape the experiences people call supernatural. Listen, anyone involved in the paranormal, especially someone like John who talks to ghosts, knows that there are a great number of people who cry demon at everything. That's a demon. That's evil. Demon, demon, demon. Today, James and I talk about what really separates demonic activity from psychological distress, how faith intersects with fear, and how he believes that getting rid of demons can at times be as simple as a positive attitude. Let's dive into the conversation. James, welcome to Splintered Spirits. How are you?
I'm pretty good, Gary. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to have you on. You're our first demonologist we've ever interviewed, and you're talking to a guy who I was raised Catholic in the Catholic Church, and then I would say baptized, confirmed. I think I've had almost all the sacraments except vocation and the last rites, which I really kind of want to get the last rites, but then not die because I just think that that's totally metal. Just to say that I've had them, even though I would say now I'm an atheist for sure, but I would still try to get those last rites if I can get the opportunity to do it. Just for the story. So I've got, I want to hear what your definition of now. You're part of the Old Catholic Church, is that correct?
I used to be. So I was an ordained deacon with the Old Catholic Church. I did separate from them. I would say more so I'd like to just say I'm Catholic, but I'm really like an eclectic Christian, or if I really want to get technical, I would say I'm an agnostic theist. So I believe, but I don't think science necessarily can prove God.
Okay. Why did you separate from what happened there with the Old Catholic Church?
I just didn't agree with a lot of the things that were going on, and I had some indifferences with some people. You got to remember the Old Catholic Church is, there is a true lineage of it, but a lot of what's in America is splinter groups, right? You have little small communities here and there, and I just felt my mission or my goal and what I do isn't to be a priest or somebody with holy orders because I ain't the most perfect of persons, and I think that I would not just be fit in that role. I didn't want to be a pastoral ministry kind of individual, like a congregation and doing liturgies and stuff like that. I'd rather just be a roving ministry, help people and do work at people's houses.
I want people to understand. So the Old Catholic Church split off in Europe probably around the late 1800s because
Yeah.
of the Pope thinking, he was infallible, and they're like, that's kind of
Yeah.
crazy. No, you're not. And then they started their own thing, and then it's like you said, it's splintered off into a slew of different things. But when it came to exorcisms in particular, the Catholic Church has a very strict set of rules to how to get into it or not. And then the Old Catholic Church, I believe, what was their sort of set? How did they look at viewing someone who was possessed?
Well, the people that I worked with, he's quite famously known. We agree to disagree. I have respect for him, so I'll never say anything bad. I'm not that kind of individual. But I worked with Bishop Long, and so, he really followed a lot of the same traditions of the Roman Catholic Church, psychological testing, medical testing, and then doing the rite of exorcism. If somebody claims they're possessed, with the splinter group that I was a part of, they would seek psychological assessments, because in this day and age, there's liabilities, but we also have a better understanding of social science and mental health. So the group that I was a part of did do that. I can't speak for other splinter groups, other groups. I know the Church of Utrecht, which is the true lineage of the old Catholic Church. They still do it. Traditional Catholics do it, which
Hmm.
is also separated from Roman Catholic. Bishop McKenna, who's famously known, was a traditionalist.
Hmm.
Father Rodriguez, who works with Nesper sometimes, is a traditionalist. Ralph Sarchi, who was connected to the traditional church, they still have a lot of these same guidelines, that the Roman Catholic does, but the Roman Catholic Church just has a larger reach. And they have a lot more policies and catechisms that need to be followed, and not everybody can be an exorcist. You're chosen by the bishop, so you can't just be calling yourself an exorcist as a priest, in the Roman Catholic Church. You have to be chosen to do so, like how Father Gabriel Morth was, or Father Chad Rippiger, or Carlos Martins. They were chosen. They just didn't become an exorcist because they wanted to.
Right. 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 Now, how do you define, or how do all these different factions or splinters define demonology? And is that still how you define it? Or now that you're sort of doing something different, did you find a new definition for it?
Well, I was always doing something different. Originally, yeah, like you, I was actually like kind of an atheist when I first when I was young, and when I first got into the paranormal, I was kind of on the fence. But so my faith wasn't always there. But I was also a member of the Church of Christ, a deliverance minister for the Church of Christ that was local to me. So I kind of got involved with Catholicism much later in my life. But I would say I define demonology almost in the same magnitude as they do, but I worked with Carl Johnson. We did a lecture group at one point called Duo Demonology, which was a demonology lecture group. His experiences, my experiences. His course spanned much longer than mine, but we coined up the definition of it: the study of the lore and cultural traditions of wicked spirits, and that's how I look at it. I am a psychology major as well, so I really kind of bleed a lot of different lenses into my research, into my ideologies. So I like how it looks through the lens that it is a cultural tradition, and there's a lot of lore to it, to Mesopotamian times, thousands of years ago. So that's how I follow it. Like I said, I'm eclectic, so I look at a lot of different religions. So my approach might be a little bit different, but a lot of it stems from a lot of Christian belief in methodology, because they really are the ones that define demonology in the modern age. You had tyrants like King James, who wrote Demonology, and other Christian physicians or demonologists that wrote like the Witches of the Hammer of the Witches and stuff like that, that were all Christian oriented. So I do follow that route a little bit more, because there's a little bit more stuff, like meat and potatoes, a part of it. But I do have a book coming out in 2026 called The History of Demonology, which explores different cultures since, Mesopotamian times, which is really kind of the cradle of religion as we know it today. And so, explores like the cultures, like how everybody else views it, and how it also kind of mimics or projects in today's time with entertainment and video games and all that stuff as well. So I'm very fascinated in history. I love anthropology. I love all that stuff. So I definitely look at it through a different lens, but I would say multiple different lenses. So that's what makes me different in many regards.
Sure. Let me ask you this then. So when you hear of someone or experience, or you hear someone talking about a demon, are you thinking of it as this is, an angel that has fallen from heaven and is working in hell? Is that what a demon is for you?
In a simple sense, yeah, it could be a fallen angel, but there's also in different interpretations of what a demon is. The root definition of a demon is an evil spirit. It's not a fallen angel; it's an evil spirit, right? If you look up on most dictionaries, it's evil spirit, and evil could be intertwined into many different terminologies or viewpoints. In the Christian sense, it's a fallen angel, but then you have devils, which are devilish creatures, which are still considered of evil. And then you have other faiths and beliefs that have different terminology, like old Japanese with the Shinto believed in Oni, Rakashas in Hinduism. But in the still the methodology of it, or the ideological viewpoint of it, is that they were evil, right? There's good and bad jinns in Islamic folklore. So, you can clump all those together and say they're the same thing or they're different, but they do breed evil or have a malevolence to them
Okay,
that when people, yeah.
yeah, I want to dive into that in a minute, but before I do that, I ask all our guests this because look, Splintered Spirits, we started about, you know, what are spirits, right? What are they? So what do you personally think spirits are?
Oh man, I think alone we could talk about that for hours on end. In simplest terms, I don't really know. That's a
Nobody
great
does.
answer.
If anybody knows,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
but that's the thing. Nobody
yeah.
knows what they are. But what do you think they are? When you walk into a room that someone tells you it's a haunted house or this person's possessed, and before determining whether that's true or not, what do you think it is? Is it
It could be residual, intelligent. It could be an echo of emotions, even though not residual, just an echo. It could be, the mind. I think we have a lot of tethers to this. I wrote a book on psychology and the paranormal, so I believe a lot. We hear about the paradox of what came first, the chicken or the egg. My paradox is what came first, the haunting or the human, right? So, I think there's a lot of different cohesive nature into what a spirit could be. I can't just say it's just the ghost of a living person, because there could be different ideologies of how it's interpreted. My general guess is I think it's an echo or some sort of tether to us as humans, because we do not like loss, or at least in this
a
Western
tether to
civilization,
what? What are
tether
we
to
tethered
us,
to?
our emotions.
But what are we tethered to? What is on the other side of the tether?
I truly believe in heaven, but
Okay.
so if you look in Christian sense, right, heaven, you can go there and there can be visitations or a sign, right? But if you go to heaven, there really isn't much talk about your loved one coming back and roaming your house and moving objects, right? So in that sense, I think that those spirits that we would deal with in a haunting might be lost souls or people that can't move on because of some sort of trauma. I always like to say the Lucky Bones, I believe, with Mark Wahlberg when the daughter dies and she gets tethered to the area because she got murdered. Like
Mhm.
I like to think of something like that, an echo. Like you put so much emotion, so a piece of you, if you move on, still stays back. So I wish I could really define what a spirit is, but in reality, I would be lying to you. Yes,
No,
I
it's
think
fine.
they could be different. I think in different locations, it could be different things. I know there's a group of collective people or minds that think it's one thing in a haunted location, but I also think that spirits can be ephemeral as well, that they can disappear in time. And if they don't disappear, it's because of the activation of people visiting it, investigating, keeping that tether there, that they're invoking that communication. But if they didn't, would they still be there? And that's the to know. And that's something that Charles Dickens wrote actually in a pamphlet before he got really truly famous. It was called A Haunted House, and he wrote beginning and ending chapter of that pamphlet. It was part of a magazine, and he said that a location's only activated to be haunted because of an individual, and that's in the late 1800s. He was a prolific paranormal investigator, but didn't believe in it. So I look at
That's
it
a
like
very
that.
similar statement to if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound if no one's
Hmm.
there, right? That's a kind of
Yeah.
that's a similar sort of line. So with that in mind of what you think all of these things it could be, what is your approach when you are called in to help someone to determine whether it is in the mind, in an echo or residual effect, or an actual spirit from somewhere that is now making this person's life miserable?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Of course, all have different techniques. I'm a traditionalist. I do a lot of the Harry Price stuff with bells on doors. I'm also a very
What does
analytical and
that mean?
critical
You got to tell me.
thinker.
I don't know. What does that mean? Bells on doors.
Uh, Harry Price. So when Harry Price investigated, and there's a love-hate relationship with who he was as a person, or as an investigator. But he used a lot of normal day items as used as trigger objects, or if you put a bell on a door, if the door opens, you hear the bell, right? So I like to use a lot of hands-on techniques, a lot of normal objects. I'm still simple. I like to do a recorder, videography. And of course, personal experiences. So I do a lot of that stuff. Sometimes I'll intermingle a Hans Holzer technique where I'll use a medium that doesn't know the location. I know all the information. I'll bring a medium in, see what they feel. If they hit off with what I got, what the homeowner told me, without the homeowner talking to them, or where they're going, then there's some validation there, because it's like they told me this. They didn't have no time to research the history or talk to the owner. They did their walkthrough right from the get go. They write it. I make them write it down in a journal. So I do a lot of different approaches, because at the end of the day, I don't claim to be a clairvoyant or clairsentient or anybody with a clear or psychic medium. I like to say I'm extra large, but so it's, I try to implement many different techniques depending on what is being presented to me by a homeowner or business owner. If they're saying objects are moving, where are those objects moving? I'll put a video camera up. If they're claiming it to be something where it's antagonizing them and negative, like there's emotional ramifications going on in the house, or people being moody, or they were never drug users or alcoholics or drank alcohol at all, and they're starting to do that, I'll dig deep into why that's happening. I'll interview them. I'll do a lot of with the basis of a scientific method of exploratory research, and I will ask questions. I will document, observe, and I will see what I can find out, and of course ask questions or make statements and see if there's any kind of reverberage to what I say. So it really depends on what they're presenting. Now, if they're saying, yeah, it's negative and stuff like that, I might use biblical scripture to see if there's any kind of um, response from that. But really, it depends on what the circumstance is. I don't like to antagonize it. I don't like to lead them down what their reality of it is. I don't try to give them the same feedback. Like, I try to be very neutral. I don't make it about the paranormal when I'm there. They know why the homeowner knows why I'm there, but I try to separate that from why I'm there, right? I try to be comedic. I try to make them laugh. I observe, like I stated. I see if they're taking medications, if they're seeing a therapist. Like, a lot of these things I look into just to see, maybe, okay, maybe they have schizophrenia, and they're not telling me, and they have a certain medication that I can see on their counter, or I ask them what medications you're on. Or maybe they are disassociative. Maybe they're having a lack of sleep, or they have stress in their life, or there's marital issues. All things that can bring forth the unknown into somebody's life, even though it might be explainable once you dig deep. Like, I'm a
Got it.
cause and effect person, right? So
Sure.
I like to see what the cause is and what the effect of it is. And sometimes I can come up with an explanation. Most times I can't, to be honest with you. Like, if I've dealt with a few demonic cases, I'd say 5 in the past 20 years. And that's not a lot. It's a rarity. So, and the reason I know they
What
were
were all the
demonic
others?
is uh, that's the either regular spiritual thing, like a spirit, ghost, or poltergeist, manifestations of their mind, or just create. I don't say it like this to mean, but crazy, or
Sure, I get it.
natural explanations.
How did you know it was
Yeah.
demonic? What made you decide those 5 times
Yeah.
this is a demon
So one
from
case
hell?
I talk about.
And I'm saying this is like a
Yeah.
demon, this is from hell. Like, from
Yeah.
this is a guy who works for the devil.
Yeah. So one case I'd like to talk about more recently in the past couple of years, because I've kind of swallowed that pill, so to say, and kind of analyzed it enough in my head to be comfortable to talk about it. But one case was in Western Massachusetts, family of 5, 3 kids, a husband and a wife. And, so if kids are involved, I try not to dissect it too much. I want to get there because I don't know what they're putting these kids through, like torment wise. Like they're telling them this is a demon or a spirit, something that's going to leave trauma on these children for a long time to come. So I try to get really involved very fast with children.
Hmm.
So they contacted me. I called them. I said, "You're dealing with this. What are some of the things, really didn't talk to him long before I got involved. So I called him, I believe it was either Friday or Saturday night. And I said, I'll be there next Saturday. I work during the week. So, it's really hard for me to take time away from work and support in my life and my family. So I said,
And
I'll
where
be there
are you?
next Saturday.
Where are you?
I,
What part of the
I'm
world are you in?
located in Rhode Island.
Okay,
So it's a 3-4 hour drive to where that
sure,
was.
got it.
So, a distance for a weekday thing. And so I said, I'll be there next Saturday. And this is one of the most prolific things that it made me um, believe this was demonic, a demonic infestation. Is I went to bed that night. I don't dream much. I'm not a lucid dreamer. I sleep and I wake up. I don't remember anything usually. But in this moment, I had what I like to call a nightmare. But I was driving to the case. Mind you, I haven't seen what the house is, the surroundings. I knew the address. I saw some pictures of scratches and stuff like that, but I didn't see full features of the family. And I'm driving in my nightmare with my team. I had a diverse team, so it could be changed out a couple times, but I had my team members that you sometimes would go with me, and I drive at the location. I see the surroundings, the house is nearby, and of course in Western Mass, a little bit more spread out. But I see the surroundings. The family comes out and greets me. I see them from feet to feet to head, what they're wearing. I walk in the house and I see like the furniture layout, everything, like the colors of walls. And I sit down, talk to them, and then instead of helping them, I butchered them. Like if you were watching the movie Saw or Hostel, I dismembered children in my nightmare. And I woke up like breathing heavily, sweating, and I'm like, "What was that?" And it took me back for a second. It's like I
You
try not
think?
to. I try not. I right. I
I
try
hope
not to.
so.
I try not to think that everything's paranormal, right? I think it's a 1% thing. If it wasn't paranormal, it'd be normal, right? So I try not to equate every little thing to the paranormal. I just said maybe like, I'm creating an image of what this family looks like. So I'm stupid in my mind. Like I said, I still have to do this because it's children. I can't let this scare me off because if this happens, then
Right.
what am I doing here, right? So that same that Saturday, same team members in my dream. Oddly enough, they're wearing the same clothes as my nightmare. We arrive to the house. The surroundings are the same. The siding's the same. The roofing's the same. Tree layout's the same. The family comes out and greets me. They are wearing the same darn clothes that they were wearing in the nightmare. When I walk in the house, all the furniture, I'm taken back. Like I'm
This
kind of
better
like
not end with you murdering them with a confession,
no,
I
well, I
imagine.
wouldn't be on with you right now. But but I see so like when I walk into the threshold of the house, like I feel a heaviness, but I'm also panicking a little bit. It's like, oh my gosh, like is this my time? Is this a proving point of like this is gonna happen? So, but I have to recollect my thoughts very fast because I'm here for to help this family, and so I see all the furniture in the same spot, the same colored walls. I did help that family. It took twice technically. One time physically, a second time I spoke to them over the phone and gave them advice to follow through and say follow through. Things will be fine. I never heard back from them after that. Usually that's a good sign, unless they reach out to somebody else. But I never heard about that case within like the tri-state area of where we're located from other people that work in this field or paranormal investigators. And it's a close tight
Yeah,
knit community here.
sure.
But I would say that was demonic because you know
What did you experience
how
when you were investigating?
really just heaviness, right? No communication, nothing like that. Just straight heaviness, and that is first sign. Like a lot of demonic cases are multiple visits. Like the first time, like a lot of people would say that they stay hidden, right? They don't want to be known. But every demonic case that I've ever gone to, once I hit that threshold of the door, I feel it in the solar plexus. I feel heavy. I start to, get weighted. And I start to, you start to feel sick physically.
And
You get
what was the
physiological.
family feeling? What were they feeling that they finally broke and reached out to you? What was going
So,
on with them?
well, the kids were getting scratched,
So there was
and
literally scratches, physical.
they were literally physical scratches, and the husband and wife, um, you know, did admit that they had marital issues in the past, but they were doing much better, and they felt like their family unit was great. I don't know how it ever got involved in their life. Maybe that marital issue, maybe wrong place, wrong time. They did have a lack of faith at that point. And regardless if you believe in God or not, faith is a very important thing. It's part of the brain structure. But so, how it happened, there could be many different branch ways of how that it happened, but it happened, and the kids were getting scratched. They were fighting. They felt a heaviness in the house. They would put, there was, you know, um, items being placed down, and then them not being there, and then being somewhere else or fully disappearing. So they were dealing with it quite a while until they reached out because they didn't know if they were like seeing something, but it really was the kids getting scratched that kind of made them go further because, at first maybe they thought the kids scratched themselves in the sleep, which is a common thing for people.
Sure.
So when it was a common thing and kept occurring and the children were being frightened and having trouble sleeping and had to sleep with the parents, that's when it really kind of went further and that they reached out to somebody and that
And what did
somebody
you
was
do?
me.
So what did you tell them to get rid of this thing?
Well, so what I would do is, it could be psychosomatic, right? Don't get me wrong. It could be a placebo effect for some people that believe they have something, but I would do a blessing of the house or deliverance of the house if it's a demonic infestation. So I performed a deliverance over the house. I gave them advice. I said, if everybody has marital issues, relationship issues.
But wait.
If
Take a step back real quick. So deliverance
Yeah,
of the house, is that like you say, like what? One Heart Father, three Hail Marys, and you burn some sage and you throw some crystals around? Like,
I
what
don't.
does that mean? What is all that? What is
So
deliverance mean?
deliverance of a house is I go. So I basically say invocation at the front of the house, the doorway, trace the cross over the house. I go to each room with the sacramentals, holy waters, holy salt, anointing oil. I anoint crosses on every reflective surface, every doorway threshold, on the doors. I put salt in the corners of the room. If there's a closet, in the corner of the closets. I do holy water in the sign of a cross in the middle, and then also incense, frankincense, myrrh, in the house as a fumigation technique. So because
But James,
so somebody, yeah.
is this performative for their psyche, or do you believe that this is actually like the demons seeing this and being like, I'm leaving this house?
Well, I think it's both, right? For some, it's a psyche thing, right? It gives them positivity. Also, on the second token of it, I also think that it does invoke, right? So, like, if you are, this is an analogy that I use. If you're in an environment that's all negative, right? And you let it consume you, and you become negative, then the negativity won. If everybody's negative and you're the positive one comes in there, maybe little by little you can change all those negative people to positive people, bring the morale up, right? So I look at it as that you're also invoking positivity in the house. And to me, if positivity can outweigh the negative, the darkness, and you can bring light to that house, in a sense, spiritually it would work, right? Because physically it can work, emotionally and mentally it can work. So to me,
So by
spiritually
doing
it can
this
work as
act,
well.
right? So by doing this act, you're sort of
Yeah.
helping them create an intent wall for themselves, even if it
Yeah.
is right.
Yes.
Okay,
But that intent wall can that barrier can come down. Like that's why I give them advice afterwards when I
sure.
leave. I'm the crutch. Like you broke your leg, I'm the crutch. I'm helping you walk again, and then you have to do more on top of it. You have to, if you're religious or if you have a loss of faith, find your faith again, regardless of what it is. Find a faith. Be positive. Cherish your children. Let sunlight in the house. If you have marital issues, go see a therapist or split from the house for a second. If you're the one that has that negativity, go take a ride, let it off outside of the house, come back rejuvenated, and fix your situation before you go to bed. Be happy, you know. So
Now,
I give advice. It's like
sure.
going to a doctor. You know, the doctor says you have to do this, this, and that. But if you don't do it, you're not magically going to get cured.
Right. That's a healthy way to look at it for sure.
Yeah.
What now? You believe this was a demon because of that dream you had or that nightmare you had, and that had not happened. You never had a situation like that before, right?
I had never
Or
had a situation that before that prolific in the sense of where it was verbatim to how the nightmare was, but
sure.
also, like I said, any true demonic case that I've been on, and I say 5, is that uneasiness and that unnerving feeling walking to the house like you're walking through quicksand or mud, and that's what that feeling is like. You're drudging along, like a lot of like your personal problems are starting to come to fruition, like you start to overanalyze. Fortunately, I'm a different kind of breed of person where I can put a lot of that aside and leave my mantra at work and in this field as well is I leave home at home, work at work. So I separate my personal life when I walk in through somebody's house. So I
Like
do my
Severance.
best to collect my thoughts.
You
Yeah.
live Severance for real. You
Yeah.
keep that split. How, can you describe a case that may have looked demonic at first, but then as you got deeper in, it was maybe something mundane or something else? And what cracked that case for you?
So I also speak about this sometimes, not too often, but I wish I had the video still, but I'd have to do some editing of blanking out the face. But so there was this older woman by herself. If I remember correctly, late 60s. This is many, many years ago, but late 60s by herself. She was widowed. And, one of her claims that was what was happening is she was hearing these sounds. She was getting sexually abused in bed by an unseen force. But the most physical thing, beside that, of course, was that her hallway would always have like, and her drywall would always have like a crater in it, like something banged into it, right? So we went out there, of course. She wasn't claiming she was possessed. And so, we said, okay, we'll go out there, we'll check it out, we'll set cameras up, we'll investigate, and we'll observe, right? We'll see what happens with us there. We'll stay quite a few hours. We'll stay overnight if we need to.
And did you do the whole
And
dance? Did you show up first and do the whole thing with the cross and then walk out of your room and do the oil? Did you do that out of the gate to give them peace?
so I do blessings at the end of the investigation
Okay,
before I
got it.
leave.
Got it. Okay.
Because, at the end of the day, if there is not something, like I said, it's the psyche thing. It's like a
Got it.
placebo effect, right?
Got it. Okay. All right.
So
So sorry.
I
Yeah, go
still
ahead.
I still do it at the end of it, but so we set up cameras
Sure.
and we said, we didn't stay the night, but we did leave cameras rolling, and we said, oh, we'll pick them up, and what they record if they. And this is the time of no wireless cameras. We actually had to run a whole DVR set, wires and everything. So we said we'll leave it there. We trust you. We can watch it anyway. So if one goes missing, we'll know, but we'll come back. We trusted her. She seemed like a very nice woman.
Sure.
So we came back and grabbed the DVR set and we watched the video. And I don't know why. And one of it was where the hallway was, where she claimed that this hole was happening. And every time the hole would happen, she'd patch it up and spackle it and repaint it. It was like mundane. It happened quite often. So there was kind of a weirdness to that. But so when we watched the video, my tech guy watched the video. And he said, James, I have something. You're not gonna be happy about it. And so all of a sudden, watching the video, you see this late 60s-year-old woman go elbow first into the wall and make an impression into the wall herself and look at it like she knows she did it, and she wanted to make sure that like it looked like it was something evil. And I don't know why she forgot that the cameras were there, but she did. And so I said I didn't bring it up to her because I don't want to ever call somebody out. I feel like that could put them over the edge, make them suicidal or do something dangerous. So we came back and said, we got nothing. We kind of lied to her, but we said we got nothing. And that ended it right there because I'm like, this is going to be a waste of my time. I think she's just lonely and there's something wrong with her. And, she's had a lot of trauma in her life. She lost her husband and she just felt lonely and wanted somebody to be there for her, and this is a way for her to. And she was also a woman of faith, so I think that a lot of that cultural identity manifested into her loneliness, and she tried to claim it was something that it wasn't. And that's one of the cases that were said to be something negative because of the sexual assault and other things that were happening. But yeah, that was a case that was like, okay, we got to walk away from
So
this. And
that's
I've
not
walked away
right.
a lot of cases. Yeah.
Sure. That's not in your pay grade, try to deal with that stuff. Um, how do you know when you come across an evil spirit that it's not necessarily a demon, but it's just an asshole of a ghost?
That's great. A great word of saying it. I think once again, a lot of the conclusions can't be answered to what it is, right? At the end of the day, I can do my thing, and if the people are at comfort, then I did my job. I like to find out the cause and effect, but sometimes there's a lot of dedication. Like I'd have to be there for days or go back every so often,
Assholes are hard to
and
get rid of in real life.
Really, truly, yes. But once again, to the idea of severance, right? If you can power through it, and a lot of this is willpower when it comes to the family. That's what that food for thought is after, and what they have to take is their willpower. Like if something happens, they can't get scared of it. They can't pay mind to it as much as that's hard to do. Like it's like an asshole you deal with every day, a bully, right? You can either punch that bully in the face or walk away from that bully, and one day they might leave you alone and find their next victim. And there's many ways to deal with a bully, but so in that same sense, sometimes it's that willpower of just like saying, hey. Don't pay no mind to it. It's it'll eventually dissipate. You might, and then I'm here. I'll give you feedback. I'll visit if I have to keep doing a prayer, a blessing. But if it's that such, right? Like once again, there's a level of difference of a feeling. And I hate to use the word feeling because physiological reactions can happen. That's a bodily thing. The fight or flight is evolved in us throughout time, right?
Mhm.
We used to have it because we thought creatures might be in the brush and we didn't want to die when we were cavemen. But so we still have that to this day, and we also have our circadian rhythm with the chronobiology that sometimes your body reacts at certain time periods. But so in that sense, it could be an a hole. Is that you really have to kind of just dissect what is happening? Like, is people losing consciousness? Are they feeling oppressed? Are they turning away from religion? Like if it's a negative spirit or an evil spirit like that was once human, in that sense, a lot of that can't be done compared to what if it was a demonic entity, right? A
I see.
demonic
Okay. I'm following
in
you.
sense is archaic, right? It's older than humans, regardless if it's Christian lore, biblical scripture, or even if it's Hindu lore. They've been around for millennia, a hell of a lot longer than us, right? And so so you look at those things, you look at the characteristics of what could be happening, and you dissect it. Once again, and I remit,
No, no,
you can't always have a conclusion because if
sure.
you
No,
always
no,
had a
that's fair.
conclusion, then you'd be the all-knowing, right?
Yes, exactly right. You'd be the most powerful person there is.
Yeah.
What is the most powerful tool in your arsenal when you're going on an investigation? Do you really rely on? And it doesn't have to be a
Myself.
physical. It doesn't have to be a physical tool. Like it's just
Yeah, my
what do you put the most weight into in order to have a successful
Yeah,
result with a
myself,
client?
but if for tool myself, because if I can show them my empowerment and my faith and my strength, maybe that can rub off against them. And once again, sometimes it's a personality thing. Sometimes you might not mesh, and you have to get somebody else to get involved because they might mesh with them better. Like, so really, it's myself because I know when to step away. I know when to maybe go to Plan B. But if I had to look at it in as a data sense, right? I don't like to call it evidence because it's not evidential; it'd be fact. Is that I like the trifecta, which is a recording, video, and something on camera, or even seeing it with the video and getting something on the digital record. Because if you can get those three things on that's validity, right? Why did the video catch something? Why did I get a voice? and on a recorder, and why did I see something, right? Or why did a camera get it? So myself and the objectivity that I bring, because I'm not very subjective at all. I used to be when I first got into this, but my objective approach is my strength and a tool that I think that is best for my clients because I like to help them the right way. I don't like to put a band-aid on it. I like to try to get them over their trauma. And I like to try to get them over that hurdle themselves internally, because once again, in those 5 cases of a demon being involved, there was prolific trauma involved in every single one of those individuals, like the marital issues, right? In some sense, maybe drug abuse or isolation, social isolation, and stuff like that. There's always that. But once again, is when you peel back the layer and you do psychological testing, and those things don't show why this could be happening. They're not schizophrenic or bipolar 1 or 2 or dissociative identity disorder, then you can put maybe that the mental can happen, the spiritual can happen at the same time, and it can. But so yeah, my objectivity and then those tools. I'm very simple when it comes to tools. I don't like all the bells and whistles.
Sure.
I'm originally a tech guy. So I know what a lot of the stuff that's entertainment wise that's used in this field, and a lot of it's unfortunately not my cup of tea.
So, I mean, you talk a lot about, you have your own style and how you approach these homes and how you've split off from different people. It sounds like you have a very high, bar and personal boundaries that you will and will not cross, that you will or will not cross with people. And so how often does that come in conflict with teams that you investigate with, or, you have to walk away or not? How do you handle it?
Yeah, one of the times that a team got me involved. They brought me in as a consultant, right? My speciality, and I'm known as being a demonologist. Respected, hated, whatever, however it goes. But so they called me in, right? I gave my feedback based upon what the data they collected and my physical being of there and feeling it out and observing it, talking to the family members. And I could essentially said I don't believe this to be demonic. Because there's not all the call signs for me to point towards that, and for me to say it's demonic is me lying to not just the team but to the homeowners. And I don't like to ever say to a homeowner anyway. I don't think ever told the homeowner, "Yeah, you have a demon in your house." I try to just,
Right.
I try to white lie it a little bit and said, "Yeah, there could be something here, but we're gonna handle it and we're gonna help you, right?" Because
Mhm.
if once you tell them that, it could be a psychosomatic thing where like what did I do wrong? Why is God punishing me? And it makes it worse, right? So, but I told the team because they're professionals in my mind. I would think is that this is not a demon, and they told me I was wrong and that they regretted calling me in. Like they wanted it to be a demon because they wanted to experience it and have that thrill riding a roller coaster. And I was like, it's not, in my opinion. Like maybe I have to come a couple more times. But my first analysis of it by sitting with the family, observing it, and this and that, I don't think it's what you're dealing with. I don't know what you're dealing with, but I don't emphatically think it's this. And they trounced me for it publicly, privately, and it did get around. But I'm like, I stood by
Well, look,
my
I gotta tell
being.
you, James, I don't know
Yeah.
shit, so I haven't heard about it yet. I'm still learning about all this stuff. So any
Well,
bad any bad
this is
press you
years
had,
ago.
any bad press you
But
have, I haven't seen it yet. I've listened to a lot of your interviews and I've read some of your stuff, but I do what I can in terms of research for these calls. I want to know who I'm going to talk to, but I didn't come across anything like super negative about you. And you came referred by a man, Sam Beltrusis, that we've interviewed on the show,
yeah,
and he speaks very highly of you. So
yeah, I love
you know,
Sam. The cool thing about Sam, and to give him a little plug, is I always like to joke he's written 20 something books, right? And I like to say I'm in a good chunk of them, because we do a lot of exploration together. But we also lectured around the country, and our topic was called Monsters of the Paranormal. And so shout out to Sam, and I
yeah,
appreciate him giving
he's
me
a really nice
feedback.
guy. He's very kind
Yeah.
and generous with his time. Let me see here because I have the whole spectrum of what you cover. I do find wildly interesting, especially since all right, so children and teens are often at the center of you know bad spiritual activity. That they're usually there's always kids in the house.
Yeah.
Poltergeist activity for years has been attributed to teen girls.
Mhm.
What how do you how do you safeguard yourself when you're dealing with that and you're dealing with families like that and it's a little kid where does that fall into your checklist of criteria as you investigate a house? Does that make
Well,
sense?
most of
Does
the
that
time,
question make sense?
yeah, no, yeah. So most of the time, I ask for the children not to be there if I'm coming, unless like one of them is being affected, and I might need to do prayers over them before I'm bringing a priest in or another minister in, that maybe I feel is more qualified than myself. I will ask them to come back after our observations and say have a prayer done over them, as long as the parents agree to it. It doesn't hurt, but I try to safeguard them by not allowing them to be a part of the process. I also even like at the times, and I'm a very experimental guy, so there's times where I ask like if I believe it to be the house based upon what they're telling me. Like I I've been doing this long enough where I have a general idea, like not knowing, but I have a general idea what it could be, right?
Mhm.
It could be the house, the property, maybe it's an echo, residual, and so I'll say, "All right, I want you guys out of the house. If you're cool with that, I want you guys out of the house. Go somewhere. Go to dinner for a couple hours. Go do something. Take your family, and let us investigate the house with you guys there, and let's see what we get." Sometimes, if it's surrounding them, which is a lot with demonic infestation or oppression, is it starts to target a specific individual. I might then have keep that individual in one room and see what happens with that individual while we're in there. Um, so really, I tried to keep the children out of it because once again, they're imaginative, and they're innocent, and I don't want to be saying a lot of these things or asking questions in front of them because once it might make them impressionable. For what we're doing, and they might have nightmares or they might have psychological trauma from it. Um, but if in the sense um, that if children are involved, like I have 2 kids. I haven't always been a father, but having a child, I know how to approach it. But as far as why children get affected more, which can kind of branch off of that question, is once again they're imaginative and they're innocent, right? So they're more willing than maybe an adult to talk to a stranger, right? That's why we tell our kids not to talk to strangers because they're willing to go up and give a stranger a hug or grab something from a stranger. So it's the same thing with something maybe unseen, unknown, or preternatural. Is that they will open that kind of communication, and that alone, regardless of how old they are. Is enough for that kind of feedback. It's like a receiver and antenna, right? So
Yeah, sure.
once they open that doorway, there it is, and that they're going to be affected
Makes sense.
mostly. Yeah.
Now, all right, so you worked with Carl Johnson for a while. You guys still work? Is he? I only know him by name, and
No, we haven't. But we stopped working with each other quite a few years ago. I was working with, and we don't work together anymore. We're still very close friends though. But I was
okay,
after doing demonology, I started working with Father Bob Bailey, who's a Roman Catholic priest. We had a lecture team called Faith and Reason. But I went through personal things and separated for a long time, and then came back probably after 10 months. And he's doing his own thing now. So I'm letting
no,
we're
no,
still
sure.
great friends. We get it.
So,
But
but
yeah,
you
I
worked
don't
with
work
him
with Carl.
in your early sort of when you first started getting into this, like that was a while, right? You worked with Carl, and
Well, I
he's
work
one
with
of these,
Carl.
and
Yeah.
he's one of those guys, right? Like I don't know what's going on in Rhode Island with all the hell that's going
Yeah.
on over there, and it just seems, you got the ghost hunters started out of there, you got the Conjuring House, you got, but he comes from this obviously a very old school start of what I would say The Conjuring and is so ubiquitous now with hauntings and everything else, and his claims of being the people who sort of helped bring the Warrens to that, but then got cut out of it and all
Yep.
that stuff.
Yeah.
What did you? I don't know him at all, and I'm only going off of this of interviews I've heard with him and you actually. So, what did he
Mhm.
teach you that stuck with you in terms of calibration or skepticism and how to handle a room or do you still carry that with you or do you do it what did you learn what sticks what did you change how does that play out?
Yeah, I like to say I'm a jack of all trades, a master of none. So like everybody that I've worked with or I've worked under, I've taken a piece of them with me, and I of course calibrate it to my own thing, But yeah, I worked with Carl twice in my life. First time when I really was very very young. And I was his tech manager for a group called Beyond the Veil Paranormal. I was his tech manager before I was even a demonologist. And then, I worked with him on some cases and got to see how he does things. He's, of course, talked to me about demonology and demons and a lot of the questions I had to ask him. And so he gave me a lot of feedback, a lot of things to read and look into. We have separated, of course, over time, like anybody in the paranormal. Longevity is not a long time thing sometimes in it. So we stopped talking for a while and then we rekindled. And that's when we started working together as duo demonology. So it was quite a few years in between, quite a few years actually in between. But I learned a lot from him. I would say what I learned from him is, and I'm always been an objective, analytical, critical thinker, but I think he brought more of that out in me because he views it in a certain different scheme. Like he says, it's the great to know. Like he is very wordsmithy, like very intellectual, very smart. And I think that brought that out of myself where I used that intellect a lot more and how I observed situations or how I looked through it and maybe in a different lens. Like once he basically coined the definition that I brought up about what demonology was at the beginning of it, and we both agreed that's how we were going to move with that definition. And so it's like if you look at it, the lore and cultural traditions, and that's a lot of what he looks at, like the writings of it and how other people have looked at it, and he utilizes it. And he has a loose faith as well, right? He has a mixture of faith. He's not full Christian. He was a Satanist younger in his life, so he definitely brings a different spectrum to it. That other baby demonologists, like his brother Keith Johnson, who's also a demonologist. He's a biblical demonologist or religious demonologist.
What's
They're
that
like
mean?
night and that means he's straight Christian. Like he looks at it, he thinks all ghosts are demons.
Uh,
So he look they're like night and day. I always said they're the good and evil, good and evil twin. Keith being good, Carl being evil.
he
It's
thinks
always a
every
joke between.
ghost, he thinks every
Yeah,
spirit talking through that spirit box is a demon. It's
not
not
at
like
one
it's not like
time.
your
Yeah,
Aunt Josephine. It's a demon.
he wasn't always like that, but he adapted, I guess, things that he came across that just made him feel like that. I might not agree with it no necessarily, but maybe he's looking at it in a different way that I don't see it, and maybe he's right and I'm wrong. So, but yeah, they are different spectrums of how they approach
Sure.
situations. They for sure are. But
Um,
both are legends. So you got to give them their respect and their credit.
sure. I mean, I don't.
So
I'll start. My education in all this is only just begun, as they say, as the song goes. Uh, as I'm trying to figure out, I like getting different perspectives
yeah,
as we try to paint a picture of what a spirit is, right? And I've heard it from all
yep,
different sides of how we place it in terms of, especially when it comes to evil. But everyone immediately goes to evil, right?
hmm,
So that seems to be the first step.
of
No one
course,
ever thinks like, "Hey, man, this is just some frat guy who's dead and he wants to have fun with you." It's just like straight up,
yeah.
it's straight up evil. Um,
Well, that's human
just
nature. That's why.
yeah,
It's
you
human
know,
nature. We've always been like that from the beginning of humanity. We look at pestilence with Pazuzu, right? If they didn't pray to him, he would come and reap your crops, right? And you die of famine. So we've always had that
I
mentality,
know,
right?
yeah.
So it is human nature to jump to evil in any sense of the way.
So what do
Yeah.
you think nowadays? Now we've changed, right? You were a baby of the ghost hunters, right? The TV paranormal generation, and now we're in a social media paranormal generation, right? What do you think pop
Yeah.
culture gets wrong about um, deliverance or minor exorcisms or solemn exorcisms, or what is skewing the reality?
Well, a lot of entertainment does present it in an interesting way. Some legitimately, like one of my favorite movies of recent is Nefarious. I always tell people that it is as close as you could get to maybe like dealing with a demoniac, which is a possessed individual. That's a great movie, but a lot of pop culture puts an entertainment value to it. Of course, it's Hollywood. You know, I tell people to take it with a grain of salt. Like the Conjuring series, they're awful. The first one was closer to reality. Then they start getting away from reality a lot more. And the last one, great horror movie, but a lot of it didn't actually ever happen. And I'm not saying anything bad about that. I'm just saying it's like you got to be careful of what you approach every movie or every book that talks about it in like maybe a fiction sense has a grain of salt of truth, right? Because once again, one of my favorite movies is Insidious. I didn't believe in astral projection at one point in time, and then I was proven wrong by somebody that I worked with about it. And so you could say, well, astral could be legitimate.
I don't know
So
what you're
it
talking. Listen, but real quick, James, you got to know this about me. I'm a big pussy. I don't watch horror movies. I'm totally scared by it. It's like if I'm watching a movie, my wife will sit there and record me watching it because I'm grabbing my dog. There's always some old. I believe that little children and old women are the scariest things on earth because of horror movies. There's always some old
yeah.
woman crawling on the ceiling or some little kid hiding and just staring at you in the closet. They're definitely evil. They're the worst kind of ghosts there are, and they're terrible. So with that said, I don't know. You're dropping names
Right.
like Nefarious and Insidious. I don't know. I mean, they've been out for a while, so I don't care if you spoil it. But
Yeah.
explain to me
Well,
what you mean by astral projection and by, and you said there was another term in there you threw out with both these movies that are that you didn't believe in, but that you think got it close to being right or as close to being right as you can
a
see.
grain of
What?
salt. Yeah. Yeah, like, in Nefarious, like, just how the person reacts, when you're dealing with an individual, like, they try to, deflate what you're thinking, or they try to put smoke and mirrors up, like, they try to make you think, "Well, I'm not really possessed, I'm just crazy," and, they probably possibly truly are. So that's what Nefarious is about.
Uh,
It's about a guy in prison. He killed somebody, and spoiler if you didn't watch it, it comes to find out that he really was possessed, and the person interviewing the psychologist actually kills himself because he went crazy, and the demon possessed him because of it. It was a mind games, right?
sure,
That
sure.
the demonic do. Insidious is a James Wan movie, is where it's based on this little kid that goes to sleep and he doesn't wake up, and medically they can't find out what's wrong with him, like he's in a coma. And if come to find out, the father had the same gift as a child but got locked away, and this kid was in the astral plane, like left his body in this like astral plane, or this ethereal plane, more so to say. And so the boy gets lost, this evil force in the astral plane or ethereal plane, um you know uh kind of captures him, kind of like a Stranger Things thing, but
I mean,
where
it sort of replaced his personality or his consciousness. So is that what you're saying? Is that what that movie is? So like
no,
the kid
so
falls.
the boy just disappear. The boy doesn't disappear like Will does in Stranger Things, but he's just he's in a coma like state, right? So it doesn't change his personality, but
Oh,
he doesn't, until the father realizes that he can do the same thing. He goes into the astral plane too to go save his son spiritually, right?
mm.
And that's what astral projection is it's leaving your body, and being in a different dimension or reality or whatever, and so that's what astral projection is. So a lot of these movies, once again, have a little bit of grain of salt of truth, right?
Do you
That
believe in things
this
like remote viewing when it
um
comes to consciousness?
I think so. I think in a sense that it can be done. Not everybody can do it. I think you have to train yourself. You have to focus. I knew somebody that I work with. Her name was Mandy Brown. She's a psychic medium, and I don't think every psychic medium is legitimate, to be honest with you. But there was just a lot of things. She was the person that I said I talked about not giving an address to. I picked her up, brought her, and didn't talk to the homeowner. I told the homeowner not to say anything. She went to every room in the house and then found the room that they were having the most activity in, right? And said, "This is what's happening," and exactly said everything that was happening without me saying it, without them saying it. And that's the same person that could remote view. She'd sit at me in my house. We'd call the homeowner, and she'd like verbatimly say, "This is what your room looks like." what color, where your furniture is placed. And so to me, that's remote viewing. She was able to see remotely their location, what their house looked like, what they looked like, without even seeing them, just being on the phone with them, vocally, verbally.
That's wild, isn't it? Isn't
And
that wild when they see when you like that's a little
it is, and like it takes you back because at first I didn't think she was legitimate, but when you can tick all those boxes off, right? And once again, there's so many people that claim what they think they are, or they're good cold readers, but when you can do certain things like that, it's hard not to validate that. It's hard not to say this isn't truth and reality, and that's what a lot of parapsychology looks into. And there's a lot of crap in parapsychology, but there's some good stuff that has come out of parapsychology too. But telekinesis, telepathy, stuff like that is fascinating to me.
sure.
But yeah, no, I agree to an extent. I'm also a see it to believe it kind of guy. I've never done it, so I can't 100% say that maybe she was just really good. But I'm a see it to believe it kind of person. Like when I first got into demonology, even though I was a Christian, a lot of Christians don't believe in demons, to actually be honest with you. I didn't believe in demons right away either until I actually had my first experience in a home. But so it's like I'm a see it to believe it kind of person.
What was that
And
first
that's why
experience?
so it was in Salem, Massachusetts,
Of
and
course it was.
yeah, and a psychologist actually called me in to get involved. A psychologist. And the psychologist called me and asked me to look into it because they thought something else was going on, and there was something happenings that had occurred in this person's homestead, and that spooked the team. And they called upon me, and I got
And
involved, and that was my first.
and so you go
Yeah,
in, and was it the same as that other house? The weight only, or like
yeah.
what were the telltale
Wait,
signs?
Wait, but this person actually had physical reactions. Like he actually his face triangulated, so his cheekbones started to point out. He actually was able to crumble sheetrock like a archway with his bare hands, what you can do if you're really really strong. But he wasn't really like built like a tank. But he was crumbling sheetrock. He touched a rosary that I have. I wish I had. It's probably in my car right now, but I do promise it's real because I do bring it to conventions and show people. But I was wearing a set of rosaries and grabbed onto them, and they were metallic, right? And so when he grabbed onto it, I didn't realize until much later when I was trying to see if they're fixable. They were pretty in bad shape. But where he grabbed it, where it broke, they were oxidized, right? And nowhere else was it oxidized. Like I'm using oxidized because it's an easier term for people to
Sure.
understand. But it was like oxidized, so the metal actually had like tainted and turned a different color. So it was interesting. So a lot of those things happened in that case. And he was his voice changed, patterns changed, his voice patterns changed. Like you could hear different octaves, maybe different voices. And what was the craziest thing is I used to work with this guy, Paul and Phil. They're big guys, and one used to be a bouncer,
Oh,
and
you mean like
they
physically
they
big? Okay.
physically
Yeah, yeah,
physically big,
sure.
and they pinned this guy up against the wall, and he's in his young 20s. Pinned this guy up against the wall, and he was still able to fight them and dislocate his shoulder and grab me. Like you heard the pop of the shoulder, and he dislocated it and grabbed me. That's when he grabbed the rosaries. Yeah,
Where's
so
that guy
those are
today?
the things. I got a couple. I Me and the psychologist had a rocky relationship throughout time, but because she started, and to be
How many
honest,
years
like
ago
she
was
did.
this?
Oh, like 10 years ago.
So, dude, he's on Facebook. You
If
haven't, I
not,
mean, everybody. This is what Facebook's
if
for. Instagram. You gotta like troll that guy. You gotta find out if he's like in the, and see
well,
whatever happened to him.
last time I heard from the psychologist when we were in good terms, and we're in good terms again, that that person was doing much better, and living much better life from what my understanding was. So it seemed, and once again in that case, once again it was a mixture of mental health and spirituality, and that was where the fallout, like all these things happened. The psychologist was there, and then it, it was such an emotional moment for a lot of people that were involved because they never seen something like that before, and it was the first time for me. But like once again,
But
I'm a
you believe that that guy had a demon from hell
y-
in him,
yeah,
or
I
working.
did,
Let me
yeah,
ask.
because of all those things. Yeah,
Listen, James, I appreciate your time here today, and I just got a couple more questions for you if you got
of
if you got
course.
a second. So,
Yeah, take your time.
uh, what you've gone through a lot of beliefs and stages. I mean, even now you're wearing a ghost shirt. They got some of my favorite satanic songs ever, that band, which I love.
Yeah.
But what would you tell your younger self about demonology now? Like, based on what you know and the people you've met and the things you've learned, what would you change? What would you tell your younger demonologist self?
I'm crazy and don't do it. I'm crazy and don't do it. Like out of all the things I could pick in my life, right? Yeah, I have a career and pays me well and puts a roof over my head and I have nice things from it. Don't get me wrong, but like of all the things I could have picked up, and I can't call it a hobby because it really is like, um, it is like my career. It's my love. It's my passion. It's my I can't think of the word off the top of my head. My vocation, but
Mhm.
I would tell myself, "Don't do it. Don't do it at all," because I've seen some of the craziest things. It's put some of the worst decisions of my life in there. I would tell myself, "Don't do it," but maybe I was meant to do this, and somebody told me that a long time ago. Actually, multiple people throughout time has told me that is that you were picked to do this. And I believe that to be true because of all the trauma I went through as a child and how I found my faith, and how it kept me from doing something stupid to myself. So I really felt like I was kind of groomed to do this in an
Sure.
odd way, not to make myself seem narcissistic or self-centric, but I really truly believe I was chosen to do this. Like so, but
But
if I had,
outside of the foot,
yeah,
look, it's funny to say don't do it, but like, is there any practical outlook or belief
yeah,
that you have now that you would tell your
yes,
younger investigatory self, like,
yeah.
man, these are the things to look for. This is what you should ask. This is what you believe. This is the truth of it. We don't, you were so, like, what are those things?
Yes. So I would say be more objective and then also learn how to separate. Because early in my life, I did not know how to, it was, a psychological term for it. It's called transference.
Hmm.
So I would take a lot of the baggage of the people home with me. I would get very emotionally distraught if I couldn't help them or how to separate. Like I really try to put too much time and effort into somebody that, it's like the, analogy, you can only lead a horse to water. You can't make the horse drink the water.
Sure.
And am early in my life doing this, I try to make the horse drink the water, and it took a lot out of me, physically, mentally. And I would tell myself just to uh, approach it differently and be more objective of how you approach it as well.
Right. James, what's going on with you? Tell the people like where they can find you next. You're gonna be in any appearances or books, or where would you like? What can we plug for you here? What's coming up for James?
Of course. So I have a bunch of podcasts coming up, but really, like I said, I just started dipping
I don't
my
give a shit
feet
about those,
back in.
James. I only care about this podcast. I don't
No,
start
this is
dropping competitors' names. I'm kidding. We're not against
I
any other
didn't drop
podcast.
any names,
I know.
but this has been a great podcast for sure, man. You've asked some great questions, but in reality, I was just started dipping my feet back in. Really, why I started dipping my feet back in is for if you are in video, I have a book coming out October 31st, which is on Halloween. It's
Ooh,
called The Psychological Dimensions of the Paranormal.
I want to read
And
it.
so it is an approach. I'm in my master's program for my psychology degree right now. I have a year left. I have my bachelor's in psychology. So I really love the psychology element of it. So that book's coming out. It is a different lens. Some people that are very belief oriented and not skeptical might not like it, but really the book walks a fine line between skepticism and belief. It walks right in the middle of it. It talks about the skeptical viewpoints of it and the belief aspects of it,
I love that.
but it tries to be clean and look at how social science and neuroscience looks at it and gives a lot of the physiological reactions of why we might experience something that we call the unknown. So that
What did
comes
you
out
have to
October
research for that
31st.
to put that book together, James? Where did you go? Who did you talk to about to put this together?
A lot of research was, of course, because like I said, I'm in psychology school, but a lot of it was based upon current psychological minds or past psychological minds. Carl Jung is probably one of the top. Even though anecdotal, a lot of his viewpoints were, he still has a lot of stuff that is coming to fruition nowadays. A lot of people are saying, well, he wasn't wrong, right? And So, but I looked at a lot of research. I also am doing, it was supposed to be a part of the book, but my population pool isn't to the greatest right now. But I'm actually doing um, um, a quantitative study right now through my Southern New Hampshire University, my school that I go through, called the psychological dimensions of the paranormal, which that looks at belief with critical thinking and personality types, which is actual true study. You can actually take the survey, and then that's based off Toback's paranormal belief scale, which is also another awesome person to look into is Toback. But a lot of the research was done on current scholarly articles, my own viewpoints of it, historically haunted locations, possession cases that have been documented or talked about. It's split into three parts: spirits, demons, and the human mind.
Sounds great. That sounds wild. And I assume are you self-publishing? It'll be on Amazon. We'll be able to pick that up.
Yeah, I'm self-publishing it right now. I might go through a publisher and re-release later on, but I'm very impatient. It took me a very long time to write a small book like this. I've been writing the book for a very long time, and when I concluded it and got my forward done by Ron Iacovetti, who is an ITC researcher, one of the top in the game right now, I decided just to self-publish it right now, and then hopefully if the first book does well for my second book called The History of Demonology, which is going to be early 2026, unless this gets picked up by a publisher. I think this is a test to see if the publisher will pick both of them up. But so that one will be. It's not announced yet a specific date, but yeah. So Amazon October 31st. You can pre-order on Kindle right now. There's a link on my Facebook, James Annitto, Annitto, and also I got to actually update the link tonight. But you can also go to jamesannitto.com. Or if it's easier, because my name is a straight Italian name, two N's, two T's, you can go to demonology.org, demonology.org, and that also links to my website, and you can go to the book tab to pre-order The Psychological Dimensions of the Paranormal.
That's awesome, man. Look, James, thank you so much for being on with us and talking to us. It was really great. I like your approach. I like how you look at things, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate it, and hopefully one day in the future we can do a part 2.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely have to get you back here. I want to get into there's a lot of other things. As I get more educated too, and I'll have even smarter questions for you to get into once I learn.
Brilliant questions.
Great. No, it was a lot of fun, James. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gary.
Well, that's it for another episode of Splintered Spirits. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, stay curious.